Since today's story is a cowboy story, I'm wearing the closest thing I have to a cowboy hat. The title is The Honest Confession of Elias Callahan. I want to get you right into the story, so if you'd like to read a synopsis before you listen, you can find that in the description below. This is part 1, and next week we'll share part 2, which is also the conclusion of the story. Enjoy The Honest Confession of Elias Callahan. This is part 1 of The Honest Confession of Elias Callahan, a short story by Janet Keller Richards, copyright 2024, all rights reserved. I reckon when I tell my brother Abe I'm leaving the gang, he'll get angrier than a sow bear protecting her cubs. But I want out. I'm tired of robbing stagecoaches. I just hope I'm still alive after I've said my piece. Since the others have all gone down to the creek for a swim, I guess now is as good a time as any to talk to my brother. I stand up, toss a branch into the campfire, and head over to where Abe is taking the first watch of the night for unwanted visitors. He sees me coming. "Elias, why aren't you down at the stream with the others?" I shrug and dig my hands into the pockets of my trousers. I guess I'm not in the mood. I force a grin. And you know I'm a terrible swimmer. "One of the worst," he says. To my defense, I say, I was only 4 years old then, but I'll always be grateful you yanked me out of that pond and kept me from drowning. It sure scared the living daylights out of Ma, though. She wouldn't let me go near watering holes until I was taller than Pa. We both laugh at our shared memory until silence comes again and I hear the chirping of tree frogs all around us. My brother's excited voice breaks the quiet. "Word has it there's a sizable shipment of gold going from Helena to Fort Ellis later this week." He looks at me and smiles confidently. "We're going to interrupt it and transfer that gold into our possession." I realize I just need to jump in and spit out what I have to say. "Abe, I want to go back to being an honest citizen. I don't want to rob people anymore. Every time we hold up a stagecoach, I spend at least a week wishing we hadn't, wishing I could do something else. I want to find a real job somewhere." Abe scuffs the dirt with a boot, and I risk a glance his way. He's staring hard at the ground in front of him. His eyes are narrowed, his lips are pressed together, and his nostrils are flaring. He finally looks my way and says sharply, "How long have you been cooking up this harebrained idea of yours?" I turn and meet his angry face. "I've wanted to leave for months. That's why I've been silent in the planning discussions about our heists, because I want out." Abe frowns and jumps on my words. "I thought you were keeping quiet because you agreed with the plans I was laying out. I didn't know you were turning into an addle-headed coward." I know there's no point in defending myself from his remarks, so I just say again, "I want out, Abe." He starts hollering, "You can't leave. You wanted this life, Elias. There's no going back." I stare at his fiery eyes. "When we started, I was only a 16-year-old kid who adored his big brother," I say. "I would have followed you anywhere, Abe. But I'm 6 years older now. I'm a man, and I don't like what we're doing. If Ma and Pa were alive, they'd likely throw us in jail themselves, knowing we've been making a living by holding people at gunpoint and stealing their possessions." "Don't get self-righteous on me," he says, "and don't try to blame me for your choices. You've been a part of my gang, of our gang, this whole time. You're not innocent." I never said I was. I said I want out. I want to turn honest. Abe chokes out a bitter laugh. "You know wherever you go, people are going to find out about your past. You travel anywhere this side of the Mississippi, and someone will turn you in, and they'll throw your sorry hide in jail. You can't turn honest. It's too late for that." "I'm willing to take that chance," I say. "And what do you expect me to do? You're the best sharpshooter in the gang and the only man besides me who can think on your feet. If you leave, you increase the risk of danger for all of us." At first, I don't say what I'm thinking because I know Abe has a stubborn streak a mile long, and when he starts something, he wants to finish it. Though I doubt he'll listen to my idea, I finally offer it. What if we both turn honest? I add a little humor. Honest Abe. It has a nice ring to it, don't you think? A twig snaps behind us, and we turn around to see what it is. Jeb steps into the clearing beyond the horses. The other men are right behind him. I wonder how much of our conversation they've heard. I don't have to wait long to find out, since they're all stomping in our direction, and they don't look happy. Jeb reaches me first and grabs a fistful of my shirt. He leans in close, his face 2 inches from mine. His eyes are full of venom. You're a traitor, Elias Callahan, and if you think you're gonna just hightail it out of here and leave us in a hitch, think again. I put my hands up and lean back as far as I can. Take it easy, Jeb. There's still gonna be 5 of you. Most times a stagecoach has 2 or 3 men, 4 at the most. You'll still have them outnumbered. Jeb doesn't let go, and Floyd presses in next to him. The same venom is oozing out of his eyes. It almost sounds like your mind is made up. I try to keep my voice calm. I've been thinking about this for a while, Floyd. I know what I'm going to say next won't be accepted, but I have to try. Like I suggested to Abe, why don't we all go honest at the same time, before somebody gets killed and we all end up hanging for murder? Abe shouts, "That's enough!" and everybody shuts up fast. Jeb lets go of me and we all stand up straight. Abe pulls out his sidearm, points it straight at me, and motions with his head toward the trail. Elias, get your stuff and get out. Abe, I was hoping. I said get out, now. Only once before have I seen the seething rage that's burning in my brother's eyes. I was 14 and he was 18 when a stranger pulled a gun on Pa and Ma. Abe came barreling out of the barn and clobbered that man's head with a shovel. He knocked him out real quick and then went after him with a second and a third blow until Pa wrestled the shovel out of his hands and made him come to his senses. I stare at Abe's crazed eyes and then turn to look at the rest of the men I've been friends with for the last 6 years. Every one of them is glaring at me, and I realize it's time for me to go. Walking back toward the campfire, I grab my gear and saddle Spur, my horse. I mount him and turn back to face Abe once more. Pretending I don't see the intensity of his hatred, I say, "I'll see you around, big brother." He grinds his teeth. "If you betray any one of us to the law, the rest of us will hunt you down and see that you die a slow and painful death." He waves his gun toward the trail. "Now get out." I nudge Spur and guide him out of camp. I don't look back, hoping with all my might I'm not about to be shot from behind. The moon is full, which helps me avoid a couple of rocky areas that would be impossible for Spur to safely cross in the dark. I make my way to the edge of the forest. Once there, I pull up and stop. It's just plain dangerous to ride at night and risk a lame horse in the middle of nowhere. I dismount and settle Spur for the night and then lie down under the canopy of darkness. It's times like this I can't help but think of Pa leading family prayers after each dinner-time meal. I'm not a religious man, but I know there's a God. Even though I'm ashamed to talk to him, I find myself saying a quiet prayer. Lord, I know I've been a devil of a man, and I don't deserve one whit of your time or attention. But if you're hearing this, I would like to amend my ways, guide my steps, and show me where to go. I don't know what else to say, so I leave it at that. Rolling over, I push down the hurt that's been squeezing my chest. My own flesh and blood pulled a pistol on me. But I don't want to focus on that, so instead I listen to the crickets and the tree frogs. Soon fatigue catches up with me and lulls me to sleep. After a fitful night, I wake up with the sun and realize I had better hightail it out of the region before Abe and the gang decide letting me go was a bad idea. Since most of our stagecoach raids were to the south, I turn and head northwest, away from familiar territory. For the next 3 days, I ride hard, if for no other reason than to leave behind the feeling of being a traitor to my own kin. I hear human voices in the distance. I'm at the highest part of the trail, just beginning my descent toward the valley on the far side. The voices are off to the right below me. I dismount, walk 10 paces toward the edge of a cliff, and peer down. A stagecoach is on the trail switchback about 25 feet below. I watch as it slowly navigates the curve. It's a Wells Fargo wagon with 2 men riding on top, the driver and a hired gun. Their conversation floats up to me on the dry mountain air. I can hear them talking about how far they still have to go and how long it'll take them to get there. I wonder whether they're carrying any gold or silver on board. The sound of a gunshot rings out, and then a second shot, and I see 2 men coming out of the woods. One is walking and the other is on horseback. They're wearing bandanas, and only their eyes are visible below their hats. Their guns are trained on the stagecoach driver and the hired gun next to him. The man on the ground wearing a red bandana yells loudly, "Throw your guns down and get your hands up, or I'll put holes through the both of you." I quickly back Spur up, hitch his reins to a tree branch, and then lie down at the edge of the cliff to watch. The driver and the hired gun both drop their weapons onto the trail and put their hands in the air. The same robber hollers at them, "Now toss down the strong box and we might spare your lives, and no wrong moves or you'll be dead faster than you can blink." The driver starts to slowly reach toward the storage hood underneath his feet. He pulls out a black metal box and tosses it to the ground. While the robber on horseback holds his aim solidly on the 2 men, the man on the ground picks up the metal box and then walks over to the open windows of the stagecoach. He points his gun at the people inside. "Get on out here, all of you!" Soon a man dressed in a dark traveling suit opens the door and steps outside. He has coal-black hair with an odd streak of solid white running through it, as if that one section of his hair decided to grow old before its time. A woman steps out of the coach after the man. She's followed by a child, a young girl with curls that bounce as she walks. The lady grabs the little one and protectively moves her behind her own body. It's obvious by the looks they trade that the 3 of them are a family. The red bandana robber orders, "Toss your valuables to the ground." This is the part of robbing I hated. Stealing from innocent folks and seeing the fear in their eyes always made me feel about as low down as a snake. As I watch someone else do the robbing, I realize I have a choice. I can defend these travelers or I can do nothing. But never before has it occurred to me that becoming an honest fellow could mean risking my life just like I risked it as a thief. Yet doing nothing seems as though it's as bad as robbing the people myself. So before I can talk myself out of it, I pull out both of my sidearms, take aim, and yell down to the robbers, "Drop your guns or I'll shoot them out of your hands." They're almost as startled as I am to hear my voice calling out. They look up in my direction, and I can tell by their stunned faces the moment they finally spot my guns pointing at them. It seems they're not sure whether I'm a real threat because they do nothing. So I take careful aim and shoot the ground next to the leg of the mounted robber's stallion. The horse skitters and jerks hard, and the rider loses control for a few seconds. I say again, "Drop your guns or I'll shoot them out of your hands." As soon as the rider of the horse regains control, he throws his gun on the ground and puts his hands in the air. The red bandana robber waves his gun at everybody around him and yells at his partner, "What in tarnation are you doing tossing your gun away like that? Get down here and pick it up." I say again, "Throw your gun down." But the robber on the ground is determined not to give up. I aim and shoot the pistol out of his hand. He starts jumping and hollering and waving his hand around. Even though I'm pretty sure I didn't hit his flesh, I know by personal experience that having a bullet slam your pistol with raw force can make your hand sting mighty hard. I can tell he's in pain. By this time, the stagecoach driver and the hired gun have jumped down and retrieved their guns. They corral the robbers and soon have them both hogtied onto the bars that run across the top of the coach. The hired gun keeps his rifle trained on them to make sure they stay hogtied. The driver has recovered the metal strongbox, and the family of 3 has recovered their goods. All of them are looking my way. "We can't thank you enough," the man in the suit calls up to me. The driver tips his hat and echoes his sentiment. "We're much obliged to you, sir. Thank you." I stand and give a wave and turn away from the edge of the cliff. Even though I never once let down my bandana in a raid, and I never spoke unless I absolutely had to, I'm still nervous someone might recognize me as part of the Callahan gang. Yet a man on a horse moves faster than a stagecoach, and in a short time I'm passing by them. I pull my hat low and raise my shirt collar to hide as much of my face as I can. There's nothing I can do to hide my bright red hair. I nod as I trot on by. They recognize me as the man on the cliff and wave warmly. Even the little girl is leaning out of the window, waving a hand at me and smiling. I smile back and feel good about my choice to help them. I know it won't make up for all the people I've frightened with a gun, but at least this family will sleep well tonight. After several more days in the saddle, I come to a small town in the territory of Idaho. I figure I'm about 200 miles away from the hideout, so even with my red hair, the chances of being recognized are slimmer now. And as far as I know, no one has ever gotten a sketch of me to hang in any sheriff's office, so hopefully the law won't know me here. I pay 70 cents for a hot bath and then sink into clean sheets and a bed 10 times softer than my bedroll. In minutes, my trail-weary body and mind have fallen soundly asleep. The next morning, I wake more rested than I've felt in weeks. As I dress, my stomach grumbles. Having eaten only 1 meal of game each day on the trail, I head downstairs in hopes of finding a hearty breakfast. As I step outside onto the wooden sidewalk, I have to stop suddenly to avoid smacking into a man walking by the hotel. "Pardon me," we both say at the same time. The man stops and stares at me and then says with surprise, "You're the man who saved our stagecoach from being robbed." As is my habit when anyone inquires about my identity, I feel like I need to lie. But in this instance, I've done nothing wrong, so I say honestly, "Sir, I did stop a stagecoach robbery, but it was quite a few miles from here. I doubt it was me." His eyes grow large and he begins to nod. "But it was you. I recognize your red hair." Then I see his coal-black head of hair and that bold shock of white hair running right down through the middle of it. "You are the man in the stagecoach," I say. He is beaming widely. "Yes, it was my family you rescued. What a fortunate meeting this is." "But I passed your stagecoach on the trail," I say. "How did you get here so quickly?" He cocks his head and thinks for a second and then nods with understanding. "Sir, you must have taken the longer trail at the fork. Both trails lead through this town, but the one that breaks off to the right adds several days to the journey." I think to myself, so much for choosing the less traveled trail so I could avoid being seen. The man is shorter than I am and looks up at me with determination. "I was just heading home. Come, you must join me for breakfast. My family will be thrilled to meet you." I'm not used to being around honest folks, so his invitation feels uncomfortable. But breakfast in a home is bound to be quite a bit tastier than breakfast in a boarding house, and I am hungrier than a hibernating woodchuck. His insistence is enough to convince me. "That would be real nice. Thank you." We turn and walk side by side. "I'm the Reverend in town," he says, and then he winks. "But I hope you won't hold that against me. Reverend Hewitt at your service." I shake his extended hand and cringe inwardly. Of all the possible people I could have rescued in that robbery, it had to be a reverend. "So what brings you to town?" he asks. "I'm just passing through, heading west." "Are you a prospector?" I shake my head. "I was thinking about looking for a job at a mine." Another man is walking toward us on the sidewalk. The Reverend looks at him, breaks into a smile, and tips his hat. "Good morning, John," he says. "I'd like to introduce you to the man who prevented the stagecoach robbery." He turns and looks at me and hesitates. "But I just realized I don't know your name." Over the last few days on the trail, I've had lots of time to think, and one of the decisions I made was to call myself something other than Elias Callahan. Since Thomas is my middle name and Barton was my mother's maiden name, it's not a total lie to call myself by those names. I say with forced confidence, "Barton, Thomas Barton." The Reverend continues with his introduction. "Mr. Barton, I'd like you to meet John Stapleton, our town marshal." Shivers crawl up and down my spine. It's just my luck to meet the town preacher and have him turn around and introduce me to the town lawman. Can this day get any worse? Hey partner, thanks for listening. Leave a comment below and tell me who you are and where you're from. Also check out my allegorical novel, The Other Side of Visible. Lots of great readers' reviews on that book. You can find a free excerpt link in the description below. That's it for today. We'll see you next week for the second part of today's story. Until then, y'all have a good week. You hear?